Hello, everyone. This is William here. I just started to explain a little bit about the retro video games that I found that are quite interesting, that are the Tex Murphy video games. And they're okay, but I'll have to point something out. I use Steam and I've got them on Steam, but the games don't work as expected. I'll have to show you what I'm talking about through Steam. That Steam is exactly where I'm at, where with it. Like, there are some retro games that are abandonware that are no longer sold on digital storefronts or at all sold at all. But there are a shoe out there that are sold by third party companies. I've got quite a shoe that I'll explain which ones they are. Emu, a French company, backported a few retro games such as Sanitarium, which was originally by Dreamforge. It's a point and click game that is, well, it's published by Ziggurat, but Emu developed it. Its original release date was in April 30th, 1998 but that's the original release. The re-release is through Emu, French company that handles the backporting of retro games. That's what they do. This is it. Okay, that's the color version. I don't need that. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is actually it. Let me just resize myself so you can see it better. But this is the Sanitarium game that got a backport through Steam. This is the game I have played somewhat of before, and it is interactive from 98. Now, when you get the game on Steam right there, Sanitarium, like right up here, it'll say the Steam version is it'll say ported to Steam by .emu SAS when you start the game. But here's the trailer for it. This is the trailer. This is .emu, the company that does all that. Their parent company is Focus Entertainment, but brought them out, but they started in 2007 as a company that published port and remakes of old games, but they actually had a storefront similar to that akin to GOG, but .emu shut down their digital storefront due to competition with places like GOG and Steam competing against them. Steam has been around since 2003, September of '03, but however, GOG didn't start until late 2010, 2011. Didn't start somewhere right around there. Let me show you some more games I've got that are retro. Let's see. Here is the 11th Hour. That is a sequel to the Seventh Guest. This one I spent 3 hours on, but this one is actually released by Night Dive Studios, has published it. Trilobite Games did do some development of three of the games. They did the Seventh Guest Legacy Edition voice only, which is a DLC to the Seventh Guest 25th Anniversary Edition. The 11th Hour is actually the game that was published in 2013. 2019 was the Seventh Guest 25th Anniversary. These are all. This is $9.99. This is $5.99, but I have the classic original that was launched in 1995, November 30th. This one is published by Night Dive Studios that backported it, that helped release it again. Night Dive Studios is a company that done a lot of retro stuff with System Shock 2. They've done remasters. There is quite a lot in here. There's System Shock right here. I have a System Shock 2 on GOG that's been delisted due to the System Shock remaster, but they've done Turok 2, Seeds of Evil. They've done Turok. They've done their System Shock Enhanced Edition, which is a enhanced version. There is quite a lot. There is A lot of games in here that are retro classic. There's Sid Meier's Covert Action. I have the Tex Murphy Overseer, Pandora Directive, Tex Murphy Memorandum, Tex Murphy Mean Streets, Tex Murphy Under Killing Moon. Night Dive Studios has also done the Spy Fox, Pajama Sam, Freddy Fish, Harvester. I have the 11th Hour. There's the I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harland Ellison. I have that on GOG. Those are the games by the Night Dive Studios company. They backport retro games to run on modern computers. Most of the modern machines, if not all of them, won't be able to run retro games too well. I've already learned this the hard way before. But Night Dive Studios is the one that backports a lot of retro stuff. They do backports. Their about page doesn't show anything, but there's their Night Dive Studios website. But they handle all the retro stuff. It is difficult for them to backport old games like Tex Murphy, Overseer, all that, because there's issues of trying to backport them on modern hardware. Um, it's simple. It's simple. This is the simple version I'm giving you, but there's a lot more to it. There's the Tex Murphy Overseer that I have right here that is a lot different. I have the Pandora Directive, which is actually a CD-ROM full motion video 3D VR version, which is compatible on Windows, Mac, and Linux. This came out in 1996. I was a kid a decade ago back then. 1996 was its original launch date in July 1996 on Windows 95, 98, Windows 9X systems. But this is the game that you've got an interface, it's 3D VR, and it takes place in the year 2043 in the future of the Tex Murphy series. Even though it's a retro old school game. There's Tex Murphy Martian Memorandum, which is also classic, dating back to 1991, right there in 91 when it came out. Back in 1990 to 1995 was MS-DOS and or Windows 3.1 and Windows 98 and Windows 95. Like those are the old versions of Windows, and Windows 9X would be 95 and 98. I was a kid in 1995 when Windows 95 came out and Windows 98 in 1998. And Microsoft did the Start Me Up. They took a song, popular song, and did it Start Me Up as a way to celebrate the launch of Windows 95 to kick it off the ground to get it to where it was. There is Under a Killing Moon, which is Tex Murphy Under a Killing Moon, which is actually similar to the Tex Murphy Pandora Directive, but this one's the Under a Killing Moon version that I played somewhat of. I've spent some time in the game right here. This one's also by Access Software Night Dive Studios. This one is similar, where you just walk around a 3D virtual tour. I can't really capture any gameplay footage because the game is not compatible with OBS due to because running OBS will break the game. The Tex Murphy complete pack is like $30 with all the Tex Murphy games bundled into one. It's essentially an interactive video that's fully interactive. A lot of video games that are from the 90s use CD-ROM video compact disc itself. Some games were on floppy, others were compact disc on several CDs, but one of the Tex Murphy games, Overseer, shipped on one DVD-ROM. It also shipped several CDs, but to fix this, the developers have duplicate content, like duplicated content on the discs to minimize the amount of times you have to swap discs in and out of the optical drive. But did you know that the Tex Murphy Under a Killing Moon and Overseer, they support multi-CD swapping? Basically, if you had a CD-ROM drive changer in the late 90s, you could get it to hot swap Tex Murphy games on the CD-ROM in the multi-CD-ROM changer. You had to have a computer that has a CD-ROM drive to it, but you'd have to have an expensive CD-ROM changer that's got like a CD-ROM drive that you could swap disc after disc after disc by hitting a button to change the discs. There are YouTubers who have covered CD-ROM changers on computers for sure. I think Cathode Ray Dude or CRD, he covers Legacy Retro Tech, and I think he's covered this before where there are CD-ROM drive changers on computers that can swap discs. When you hit a button, it'll change to the next disc and the CD-ROM spindle caddy that's in the optical drive of the computer back then. Literally, like on the PlayStation 1, there are some multi CD-ROM games that you have to swap discs more than bare minimum of once when starting a game, but I'll show you. I've got a Final Fantasy game that is multi CD-ROM that requires hot swapping the discs while the game is running when it asks you to. It's Final Fantasy IX. I have that. I have the multi CDs that are 4 CDs long that require swapping them at the right moment when the game prompts you to insert the next disc. I can find it here. I've got Final Fantasy IX, which is actually the multi-disc. This one right here. This game is multi-CD. There's the X-Files, the video game that is multi-CD-ROM on PlayStation. There are quite a few PS1 games that are on split discs that you have to swap discs when it asks for it. Since the games themselves for PS1 cannot fit all on one disc that are multi-CD-ROM, they have to be split across 4 discs. The X-Files, the video game on PC, is about several CDs long that require hot swapping. A YouTuber by the name of Pushing Up Roses, or PUR, she covered the X-Files, the video game, on her YouTube channel where she had to swap discs when she was playing it, just to show how many CDs you have to swap in and out. Make the swap in a disc and swap out when playing it. Like, there are some games that allow you to install the full game to the hard drive without having to swap CDs, but the CD-ROM drive is slow speed access than versus running off of a hard disk. Even hard disks are not that fast either, but CD drives range from a single speed to a double speed to a quad speed. Like, they're different speed CD-ROM drives. The PlayStation 1 uses a double speed CD-ROM that spins at 1x, 2x speeds, and I have a game called Need for Speed on PS1 that does cause the CD-ROM motor to spin at high speed and spin at low speed when it's reading different areas of the disc. It is called let's see, Need for Speed High Stakes. This game right here is a game that I love on PlayStation 1 that utilizes the speed changing of the CD motor. So when I'm running this on the PS1, I can hear the speed of the motor go from a high speed to a low speed. So it's switching speeds in real time, where the laser is jumping to different parts of the disc, and it just causes the disc to spin fast in some areas and slow in others. So it's like adjusting the speed of the spindle motor when it's reading from that disc, loading the information off of it. It's pretty much that. So retro games are fun. They are. It's just there's some issues with some retro games. There's some developers that have since been long went out of business, and the games that they developed are hard to get a hold of. Literally, an example is the Last Express Gold Edition, which is made by Jordan Mechner. The Last Express was an old PC game from the late 90s. I'll type it in on search. The Last Express is actually a retro game that is $27. It's made by Broderbund. It's a 1997 video game that I will read about and tell you. The Last Express is a 1997 adventure game designed by Jordan Mechner and published by Broderbund for PC. Jordan Mechner did actually direct and design this game, and he's the writer for it. He's the one behind The Prince of Persia. And published by Broderbund for PC, players take on the role of an American who accepts an invitation from a friend to join them on an Orient Express days before the start of World War One, only become involved in a maelstrom of treachery, lies, political conspiracies, and personal interests, romance, and murder upon boarding the train. The game is unique in how it was created, its nonlinear story, and how events in the games are conducted within real time. The game was a commercial disappointment following its release, but received highly positive reviews and a positive post-release response. A Sony PS port was in development but was canceled before it was finished. The game was later reacquired by Mechner, who worked with Emu to make a portable versions of the game for iOS and Android, and later released a remade version for Steam entitled The Last Express Gold Edition. Emu SAS is a French video game developer and publisher based in Paris, founded in 2007 by Xavier Liard and Romain Tisserand. It's best known for its ports, remasters, and remakes. Now, the game itself, The Last Express, takes place within real time, albeit accelerated by a factor of 6. The only time when it is not conducted is so when the player's character sleeps at certain intervals and when the player is on game's pause menu. Events within the game are scripted as thus occur at specific times denoted by the in-game clock. For example, a character leaving at the compartment in order to go to restaurant car in order to have lunch. When on the pause menu, the player can rewind time to either a specific point or a specific destination or the express route, example Paris, or the player can fast forward to a later time up to the current point in the story that they have reached. Now, the game has its own artificial intelligence in it. The main areas of the game within the carriages of the train, with the player able to look around each place they're in, move down corridors, enter and leave compartments, knock on doors, and talk to people. Items within the game can be interacted with or either be examined or in some cases collected by the player for use later on. The game story features around 30 characters, which each of whom has their own artificial intelligence and individual agendas. Therefore can conduct actions that allow them to complete their own personal goals, and only challenging their plans due to player intervention. Within the game, using a nonlinear approach of storytelling in which the player's actions or inactions affect how the story plays out, the game's many events led to the script being around 800 pages long. The story features multiple endings depending on the player's actions. Around 30 of these are game overs, involving the main character being killed or arrested. 4 are alternate endings, only one of these is the true ending. So this game has multiple endings depending on what you do in the game. Play a stupid game, if you play a stupid game in the game and win a stupid prize, it's going to be a game over, whether your character's been killed or arrested. But there are 4 alternate endings, and only one has the true ending. So it's up to the player to play the game to find the true ending and see the 4 alternate endings. There are around 30 game overs. The Steam version, which is the gold edition, the Steam version features achievements directly. Emu released it in 2011, a collector's edition of the game, which includes the soundtrack, the making of video, and a walkthrough. On January 26, 2011, Phoenix Licensing, the current copyright holder of the game, re-released the game on GOG.com with all the extras of the collection edition except the walkthrough and only in English. Emu also released a gold edition for Windows on Steam. It adds improved user interface and inventory, advanced hint system and achievements, and cloud save support. It was released on Mac OS from March 17th, 2015. Things like that. So basically, Jordan Mechner also did The Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, and things like that. So basically, Jordan Mechner is the one who created The Last Express and Prince of Persia. He directed and wrote the game. The Last Express had a soundtrack by Elia Cimarol that released in 2000. That was a 39-minute long soundtrack of the game. Also, these games are point and clicks. Myst is also a point and click. Mechner founded Smoking Car Productions to create The Last Express. The company was located in San Francisco from 1993 to 1987, and at its peak had 60 full-time employees. Mechner derived the inspiration for The Last Express from Myst and Infocom's Deadline. He saw The Last Express as an opportunity to create a game with complexity of story and depth of characters comparable to that seen in a film, something he felt he could not accomplish with his games for the Apple II due to hardware limitations. Infocom Inc. was a American software company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts that went out of business. Infocom went defunct by May 5th, 1989, and it merged into Activision on 13th of June, 1986. So it went defunct in 1989. Deadline is another interactive fiction detective video game published by Infocom in 1982. Things like that. I'll explain what the 11th Hour, the sequel to the Seventh Guest, was. The 11th Hour is an interactive movie puzzle adventure game with a horror setting. It is similar to The Seventh Guest, but it's a sequel to the 1983 game The Seventh Guest. A 3DO interactive multiplayer version was planned, but it never got published. Rob Landros and Graham Devine, are the designers, and the programmer was Graham Devine, who programmed it. The game, the 11th Hour, on the sequel to the Seventh Guest on Steam, has a menu where you can access the making of. Now, Henry Stolf is the guy that is the antagonist of the game. Things like that. To keep it simple, game itself is a puzzle gameplay structure, but the additional element of a treasure hunt. There are three endings. Carl chooses Samantha, Carl chooses Rob, and Carl chooses Marie. There are three different endings in the 11th Hour, the sequel to the Seventh Guest. When you boot the game up, you'll hear the Mr. Death theme that plays in the main menu. Trilobite intended to release the game on both iPhone and iPad platforms. The release for iOS was scheduled for quarter second 2011, but in March 2012, Trilobite postponed the release indefinitely due to serious technical challenges. The Seventh Guest Book of Secrets application for iOS was renamed to just Book of Secrets and was updated to include a walkthrough in the script for the 11th Hour, just as it already had for the Seventh Guest. In 2012, the 11th Hour was re-released for Windows as a download from .emu and GOG.com. It was released again on Steam in October 2013 as a part of collaboration between Trilobite and Night Dive Studios. There was also a release for the 11th Hour, the sequel to the Seventh Guest, for 3DO, and it was pushed back to March 1995 and ultimately canceled. There was also a release for the PlayStation in late 1994 for the 11th Hour to the sequel to the Seventh Guest. Night Dive Studios is an American company that was created in November 2012 by Steven and Alex Kick, former video game artists for Sony Online Entertainment, or SOE. Things like that. Night Dive Studios is a subsidiary. Things like that. Atari SA, well, Atari Group, a French holding company, is the main parent company of Night Dive Studios. Atari brought out Night Dive Studios in 2023. They brought them out. They were originally a company, 2012 to 2019, an LLC, but Atari, the French company holding group, brought the Night Dive Studios and took them underneath their hands. So essentially, the retro games are fun to play, but the problem is getting them to run on modern versions of Windows is a pain in the ass. Directly, it is. Under a Killing Moon of Tex Murphy and the others, besides Overseer, run perfectly fine. I played it on Windows 11 and it started up just fine. It doesn't work too well on all versions of Windows, I should say. It's unsupported on the Steam Deck. It cannot be played through the Steam Deck. It is supported on Linux, but it's not supported on the Steam Deck, though it's a Steam Deck compatibility unsupported. See, it's not going to be playable on the Steam Deck, so you wouldn't be able to play it there. Only on a PC. If you have a Steam Deck, it's no go for you. Like, that's what it is. And I didn't mean to start streaming. I meant to record, not stream on Twitch. Oh. I don't know why OBS decided to do that. I didn't even click start streaming. I just hit record and OBS started streaming on its own. Like if something like a ghost button was hit. But however, the Under a Killing Moon is 4 CDs long for things like that. On this one, in about this game, this one says it's almost 2.4 gigabytes. So this game is hitting the 2.4 gig limit. Kind of like that. It's sort of like that. It needs about 2 gigs is the bare minimum, and the recommended is 3 gigabytes of storage. So this game needs at least 2 to 3 gigs of storage because it's 4 CDs compiled into one giant game, causing the game to be at least 3 gigs in size. Because of the 4 CDs that make up this game, you have to swap in the early 90s. You have to open the disc tray and swap in the next disc that it tells you to. But most of the content has been cloned on multiple CDs to reduce the amount of disc swaps you have to perform. There's also a bit of anti-piracy that most retro games from the late 90s 2000 have anti-piracy check that run to detect whether the game is inserted into the CD tray. Night Dive Studios actually screwed this one up badly. They did. What Night Dive Studios did, they didn't screw up this game, but they screwed up Tex Murphy Overseer a little bit trying to backport it. Kind of, but they also screwed up one of the Tex Murphy games inadvertently. They screwed up the one that I looked at earlier in this video, which was Tex Murphy, the Pandora Directive, I think. It's not this one. It isn't, well, it's not this one. It must be that one. Hold on, I gotta find out which one it is. It is Tex Murphy Pandora Directive. They screwed that one up. They failed to edit a config file in DOSBox that mounts the game as a virtual CD on the computer to start. Like they basically misconfigured that text file. They did. I'll show you. I'll show you where Night Dive Studios missed. I will show you where that's completely missed at. I have the Tex Murphy Pandora directive, and I will show you what I'm talking about. Basically, Night Dive Studios did do their best to backport the game, but however, in the DOSBox Tex Murphy configuration file, the conf file that's edited in Notepad, well, they forgot to tell it how to do it. They missed some quotations in the file. I'll show you. This. This is actually what I was talking about. This is the text file that DOSBox is set to mount right here. DOSBox uses a conf file called autoexec in the original DOSBox program. But if I zoom in, this is what you should see. It should have autoexec in those brackets. It should have mount C colon, or not colon, mount C quotation mark dot dot. Then it has mount D quotation C colon backslash program files 80 x86 backslash Steam apps backslash common backslash Tex Murphy 4 quotation mark dash T CD-ROM. Then it would say CD to C, change directly to the C drive, change directly to Text 4, change to the CLS clear, then text4.exe, and then exit. So this is an autoexec file that DOS uses to launch programs on startup. DOSBox uses a conf file called dosbox.conf, and the autoexec lines called autoexec.bat in the DOSBox conf file. Toward the very end of the file, there is autoexec lines you can put there to have run on startup of DOSBox, stuff like that. But I wanted to explain why the retro games that are repackaged with DOSBox, the developers backporting the game would have to edit the conf file and modify the autoexec.bat text file to tell DOSBox to start up the game correctly. That's essentially what that is. So this is William Armstrong signing out. See you next time. Bye bye.